So at the beginning, as an entrepreneur or just someone who wants to get their money right, your personal credit plays a big role. What do you think some of the biggest misinformation things are that are out there when it comes to personal credit?
I would say the very first thing that I hear day in and day out, number one, no lender gives a rat's ass about your Vantage score. I'm sorry.
Oh,
those
man.
free Vantage scores you get, I'm not going to name
Credit-
Credit Karma. There you go. That's a big one. Great company. Awesome. Doing really, really good things. I'm going to say the score that they give you is a Vantage score, and no lender
sure
will
is.
look at a Vantage score when they're making a decision on what to give you for funding.
It's so funny, dude, because just like 2 days ago in our Slack channel, one of our big strategic partners was like, hey, this client has a 705 from Credit Karma. Why are they getting declined? This is bullshit. I'm like, okay, hold on. Let's look at it. And I looked at the report, and actually Experian FICO score was giving him a 609, and he had like 4 collections for like $10,000. I'm like, well, actually that Vantage score with Credit Karma is not accurate. Every lender goes off of the FICO score. So when you're talking about personal credit, I guess the first place we should start is a good one where you have to identify Vantage scoring doesn't mean that much. FICO score means everything, and most lenders are going off of FICO 8, FICO 9 is kind of the version that they go off of. Vantage scoring is just not very accurate, and that's not what lenders use.
Exactly. That's probably the first step, the first point of advice I would give is know and understand what your lender is going to be looking at so that you can get the proper reports and know how to actually build your credit and actually see what they're looking at. So step one, get the right report. The second aspect of personal credit where I think there's a lot of misconceptions is, yes, inquiries do have an impact on your credit to an extent, but so many people are so freaked out about inquiries when in all reality, inquiries only make up 10% of your credit score. It's a very, very small credit factor. They only stay on your credit for 2 years. And what I've been noticing with lenders, Leo, is they really only care about those denial-based inquiries. As long as an inquiry is resulting in an approved open account, within a few months, that approved open account seems to outweigh the negative of that inquiry. Denial-based inquiries are the ones you need to be careful about.
Yeah, no question about it. And we've talked about this. Loan officers across the country have done a wonderful job of making people feel like, oh, credit inquiries are going to ruin my life and just trash my credit score, and you're going to screw me forever. How dare you give me an inquiry? And they've done a wonderful job at that misinformation of making people feel like, oh, I can't ever have a credit inquiry. And then there's this idea that I can actually get financing without a credit inquiry, which is just not true. You're only going to get a loan, a line of credit, a credit card, a business, any type of financing with a hard credit inquiry. And hard credit inquiries make up 10% of your credit score, as Ty said. So yes, you want to be, judicious in taking credit inquiries that are going to lead to approvals. And hopefully you can work with someone where you can get a free pre-approval that doesn't ding your credit. You know what's interesting? Like the mortgage industry, it still seems like they always say, oh, it's a soft credit pull to get pre-approval. It always ends up being a hard. I don't know.
Yeah.
And they're so heavily regulated. I don't know how they're getting away with saying, oh, yeah, but it ends up being like not even just Experian. It's always a tri-merge. So they're going to hit you with Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. It's going to be a tri-merge, hard inquiry on all 3 of your credit bureaus. And so that's how it works. But
I feel like the auto industry is worse, though.
Oh,
and what's so
no
bad
question.
with the auto industry
They are
is
the worst.
not only is it tri-bureau, but they'll shop you across all these different lenders. So you have 3 new inquiries because you have one on each credit with each credit bureau, but you'll have it with 5 different financial institutions. So it's really like 15.
Oh, my word.
But those are going to be open-ended inquiries, almost like denial inquiries, because you're only going to take one auto loan. Now you have all these other inquiries that aren't tied to an open account that it's not the end of the world. Like I've had things like that happen. And if you're trying to get a home loan or something, you have to write up letters of explanations and whatnot. But I hate when auto dealers do that.
There are auto loan brokers that are just so irresponsible and unknowledgeable, and they're literally shotgunning your information out to like 5 or 10 different lenders when it's like, dude, you should know. Like if you look at their credit and their income, you're like, oh, this is going to be the best lender for you. It's going to give you the best rate, the lowest payment. Or at most maybe 2 lenders, but 5 to 10, I mean, just irresponsible, lazy auto loan brokers out there that do that. And we see it all the time, and then we have to go through and get those removed because they weren't authorized in the first place, and just a headache and a nightmare. So yeah, credit inquiries is definitely a big thing. Have you seen this where someone's like, I have always made my payments on time, and they automatically equate, well, I always have made my payments on time, I should qualify for the best?
Yeah, we hear that a lot. But the problem is when they say, I've always made my payments on time, you look at their credit history, it's like all you've ever had is a student loan from 1990. And it's great you've paid that on time, but you have maybe a little bit of installment history, but you have zero revolving history, and that's the problem there. Which brings us to the next point when we talk about breaking down personal credit. The biggest factor with your personal credit score is your utilization.
Oh, yeah.
And in order to have that take effect, in order to have utilization, you have to have revolving credit accounts. Revolving credit meaning as you pay the debt, it becomes available again, like a credit card, right? A loan, an installment loan, is not a revolving credit line because when you pay that loan back, it disappears. Yeah. So utilization is what percent of my available credit am I spending? If it's a $10,000 card and I'm spending $5,000, that's 50% credit utilization. The quickest way, that's about 35% of your credit score, Leo, is made up by your credit utilization. So the quickest way to improve your score, if you have high balances on a credit card, is to get your utilization down. They say below 30%, but the lower you get it, the higher your score is going to go up. However, brings me back to that point. If you don't have credit cards, you don't have revolving lines of credit, you can't build history with revolving credit lines, and you don't have a utilization because there's nothing there.
So that's I think a big part of the misinformation. Oh, I've always made my payments on time. I should qualify for the best mortgage rate, the best business loan, et cetera, et cetera. But then we look at the credit, and well, actually you've got $20,000 in maxed out credit cards. So yes, you've always made your payments on time, but actually to lenders, because your utilization makes up such a big percentage of your credit score, and whether lenders are going to approve you, they're like, no, your credit is tapped out. Your one missed payday from defaulting on like 5 or 6 different accounts that you've got because your credit is maxed out. And so that big aha moment for a lot of people that they don't teach us anything about credit in school. They still don't. And that's why we have the Credit College platform that we give out for free to everyone who applies for funding, any of our partners. We want them to spread that information so that people understand how credit works because it impacts your life big time. And so number one, you must have credit cards or your credit history is incomplete. And number two, making your payments on time, very important, but also keeping your balances below 30, 40% of the limit of your cards is going to keep your credit score high. If you start going above 50%, 60, 70, you're going to see a lot of declines, and your score is going to be actually too low for most people to actually qualify for the best rates of a mortgage, a business loan, card stacking, whatever it is.
And guess what? Just because your mother added you as an authorized user on her account when you were 18 years old does not mean you have credit history. It's not like it used to be. You've got to get your own accounts. You can't piggyback off your parents or your spouse anymore. You have to develop your own history nowadays.
So that's another bit of, I'm glad you brought that up. That's one of those big misinformation things out there. You've got these credit repair companies that they'll fix someone's credit, but then there's no strong account. So then they'll sell you, hey, pay me $2,000 for some authorized user accounts. I'll put a $30,000 credit card with 10 years of good history. That's going to be really great for your credit. And that type of thing used to work maybe 10, 15 years ago, but it does not work anymore because lenders know that those are authorized user accounts. The credit bureaus do not give you hardly any credit for an authorized user account. It must be an individual account that you qualified for individually, or at worst, a joint account that you and a spouse partner qualified for together. But if it's just an authorized user AU account, that really does not count for much.
Not anymore. The one last piece of advice I do want to give on this, because and for some of you, this might seem very, very elementary, but I run into this enough that I hope someone's listening that it can impact. When you're going out to get a new car, you do not have to go through financing with that dealership. They may be able to shop you a million places, which probably will hurt your credit. What I suggest you do is you go where you have a banking relationship. Yes. Go directly to who you bank with. Say, hey, I'm interested in getting a car. I'd like to put it through you. Can you get me a pre-approval? And then when you go to the dealership, bring that pre-approval letter with you. Say, hey, I already have financing secured. Do not touch my credit. here's my pre-approval. Oh, I probably wouldn't give them that pre-approval. I don't want them to know how much I can actually spend. So keep that close. Don't tell them that actual number.
Or they'll max you out.
Exactly. But let them know I'm already pre-approved. I've got my own financing secured. You're not going to run my credit. I've got that handled myself.
Exactly right. So and also with auto loans, it seems like for whatever reason, it's almost always a credit union that gives you a better rate and a better deal than a bank. Have you seen that as the case?
Absolutely. Occasionally banks will do crazy promotions. Like you can catch them every once in a while, but I think every single auto loan, including the one I got a few months ago, has been with a credit union.
I agree. Auto loan, boat loan, any of those type of vehicle type loans, your local credit union is almost always going to have the best deal. And so having a relationship with that local credit union, a great place to go. That way the auto loan broker is not shotgunning your application out to 10 different lenders and digging your credit up, but working with that local credit union is smart. When it comes to mortgages, I feel like you need to have a trusted mortgage broker who has all of the options and can get you the best deal. Again, if you go to the local bank, it might just be one or two mortgage products. It might not be the best deal, but if you're dealing with a mortgage broker, I feel like your odds for a better deal are higher. What do you think about that?
Yeah, 100%. The only outlier I've seen with that is if you're building, like in a development, like D.R. Horton may have lender credits available because they have their own financing. But outside of that, 100%, find a mortgage broker that knows you, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're self-employed, your finances are a little bit complicated. You want that broker that understands you and your situation because it's going to be way easier than going directly to a bank.
No